Good evening. This is Matt Mosely on the Arkansas Sports Network, joined by Coach Kevin Kelley. It's Big Pig Energy, last game of the season. We're going to talk a little bit about Saturday's win against FIU, and we're going to review the upcoming game on Friday at 3 o'clock against Missouri. Coach, happy Thanksgiving. I know it's
Thanksgiving.
It's a special time of year. It's when families get together and give thanks, and I'm thankful for getting to work with you these last two seasons. We've had a really good time doing this and get to know you and get to be friends with you. And it's just a blessing for me. I just want to tell you that publicly, but it was nice to win a ball game Saturday night.
Yeah. And let me say the same thing for you. You know, we've become friends off the air. You know, we're texting and helping each other with relationships and problems and things like that. And that's what it's about is finding somebody you can go to when you need them and help each other out and lift each other up and all that. And that's a big, and I'm thankful for you and other people like that in my life. That's what you need, because life sucks sometimes. It's hard. It's tough. Of course, that's why we both love football too, right? Because it's so parallel with the game of life. And probably the Razorback season has parallel life in a lot of ways. There's ups and there's downs, and you're not sure when the ups are coming. You sure ain't sure when the downs are coming. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep on fighting. And hopefully that's what the Razorbacks showed against FIU. But, man, they got their work cut out for them against Missouri. And I guess we can talk about that in a minute. But against FIU, it's good to see live because FIU came in here and put up a fight.
Yeah.
Hats off to those guys, right? I mean, that wide receiver they've got, they hit him on that big play early. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, Arkansas's got to play a game. And I was anxious to see how they responded to that. And they responded well.
I said during the game we had a little impromptu space on Twitter pop up, and some guys were asking me about this wide receiver from FIU and Mitchell, number 10.
Yeah.
If Sam Pittman has any sense, when this game's over, he walks over and says, "How much money do you need to come to Arkansas next year?" Because that kid, he caught everything thrown at him Saturday night.
He did. If they don't have him, we win by 50.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He was targeted 10 times, caught 6 balls, 157 yards, 72 yak yards. That's the big numbers, the yards after catch.
Yeah.
The guy's missing space. He had a long run of 80, busted one on us that I was like, dang, it just kind of shocked me. But the kid is, I mean, they were talking about him pregame, and I hadn't seen him. I'll be honest, I hadn't watched FIU all year because
I watched them twice.
It's FIU. I mean, I quit watching when Butch Davis quit coaching down there,
Yeah.
So, but the Hogs got them Saturday night, 44-20. First home win since September, I think the 9th. I know at the beginning of the season, I'd have never thought, we would have went 2 months without winning a game at home. But, there was that 4-game stretch where they were pretty much on the road, and we didn't win any of those. And, that all happened. But some good things came out. KJ Jefferson logged his 11th career game with at least 3 passing touchdowns. Went 15 for 28 for 187. Really didn't light it up yardage-wise, but he did have 3 touchdowns. Became the school's leading passer in yards. Passed Tyler Wilson with 79.09. Added on to his passing touchdown number of 67. He's also thrown for multiple scores in 22 games and has rushed for a touchdown in at least 12 games in his career as a Razorback. So it was a big night for number 1. I believe it was his grandmother's birthday, and he'd kind of promised her he was going to break a record for her birthday. So that was a big event for him and his family, and kudos to number 1 for breaking that record. That's a hell of an achievement for any kid in college to be their school's leading passer or touchdown thrower. So tickled to see that. I tell you, the real bright spot for me, Coach, was Isaiah Gostave out of Florida. The true freshman had his first 100-yard rushing game. He went 14 carries for 101 yards. I've been wondering, where's 23 been all year? Was he just that far down the depth chart but behind Rocket Sanders and Rashad Dubinion, or were they intending on, hey, we're not going to play him in the middle of the year because we want to keep that eligibility year?
It could have been either one of those things, to be honest. I mean, because we were, stacked up at the beginning of the season. You thought Rocket Sanders was going to get all the carries, and AJ Green and Dubinion. I mean, there were some guys that we looked at as really good, and he easily could have been fourth on the depth chart, but with tons of talent because those guys are talented guys. And you're right. It could have been, hey, let's wait. And I don't know how much he played at other parts of the season, but look, well, let's wait. And at the end of the year, if we've got games left over, let's play him and get him some experience, get him ready for next year, and he could still take that as a redshirt year. And so it could have been either one of those, but either way, it was nice to see him average over 7 yards a carry and with only along a 25. You know, if it was 7 yards a carry and he had an 80-yard run, that means the other runs were 2 yards a carry, but not this case. He made good yards every time he ran it. It was good to see that. And I did find it interesting though that he carried the ball 14 times, and AJ Green only carried it 9 times, and Davinion, I know he's injured, but got 2 carries, and so it was interesting to see. But he stepped up, and that's what you got to do is take advantage of your chance when you get it, and he definitely did that.
He also didn't have any yards for loss Saturday night.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
To me, it looked like he was the hot hand because he was running to the hole and he was patient. Because one of the holes he ran through, I'll be honest, I could have drove my Dodge through it. It was Latham and Limmer pushed them to the side. You could have drove a pickup truck through that. I think it was that 25-yard run he had up the gut, but on a draw play. But he had no negative yards rushing. Dominique Johnson had 6 carries for 62 yards, had 1 run of 31, which was the touchdown run. And again, AJ Green looked okay. He had 9 carries for 29 yards, had a net loss of 6. We lost. Of course, Rocket went out with what we found out after the game was a torn labrum. He's done for the year. Going to have shoulder surgery. Likely done for his career, I would speculate. As a back, I feel like the kid's probably going to have a good opportunity to go to the NFL. And then, of course, KJ carried the ball 15 times for 98 yards, had a net loss of 8. I think his longest run was 26, and that was I believe late in the third quarter, averaged 6 yards a carry. I look back in the games that he runs this year. Last year we didn't like him carrying the ball too much, but this year when he runs the ball more than 12 times, they win. Every game he's carried the ball more than 12 times for positive yardage, they've won a ball game. So I look for him to do some more of that against Missouri on Saturday. Missouri's, and we'll get into Missouri. Their defense is kind of leaky. They showed it Saturday against Florida. So, the Hogs, again, we were talking about the rushing attack, 323 yards on the ground, season high for the Hogs this year. It's the most rushing yards since they put up 394 against Kansas in the Liberty Bowl last year. On the other side of the football, Al Walcott, man, is the first Razorback defender with 2 interceptions, including an interception return for touchdown since Chris Houston did it against Mississippi State in 2006. The feat was also Walcott's first career game with multiple INTs. He finished with 5 tackles and 2 picks. His interception return for touchdown and I did not know this till I was looking this up. Arkansas leads nation-leading 5th defensive touchdown this year. 4 interceptions returned for TDs and 1 fumble return for a touchdown. I did not realize we had the top scoring or turnover defense in the country. Travis Williams needs a little bit of him, and Woodson need a raise. That four interception returns for touchdown this season are the most recorded since we had 4 in 2016. So I've been tickled all year with what the defense has done. I mean, they've had some, of course, the Auburn game, I think you can kind of wash that. They just didn't really show up against Auburn. But for the most part, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, they've been the one holding the rope.
Yeah, for sure. And, obviously Auburn game was awful. I was a little disappointed against FIU early before they cinched it up that they were letting them do some things. And it could have been quite possibly that they didn't take them super seriously. They might have been looking ahead to Missouri, whatever it is. But but the unit we didn't expect to be the solid unit, the one we were worried about, is the one that showed up way more consistently than any other unit. So it'll be interesting to see, though. They got their work cut out for them this week against a very, very good running attack from Missouri, and guys that are not afraid to attack you different ways in the run game and throw the football. So we'll get a chance if they finish up this year at Missouri playing a good ball game. Even if we lose 20-16 or something like that, at the end of the year, you got to say that was the strong point of our football team, and maybe something to give us a little defensive momentum going into next year.
I was looking at the defensive stat from last Saturday night. I mean, they only had 50 tackles on defense, which sounds, you go back, you got 50 tackles. That's all they had for the game, because they've been averaging somewhere between 68 and 75. They had 50. They only had one miss Saturday night.
Wow.
One missed tackle in that whole game, which, I quantified how you grade it. Jaden Johnson had one missed tackle, and that was one that cost us. They scored a touchdown off of it. But, looking at this team and looking at all the adversity that these guys have faced all year with the losing streak and the questions in the last couple of weeks about Coach Pittman's job and his position. I know Mr. Yurachek came out Monday, released a statement that he had, I think it was actually Sunday, released a statement that they were intending on keeping Coach Pittman another year. I know that there was a quote. Dominique Johnson was quoted as saying there was a bunch of emotion when Mr. Yurachek announced SP was coming back. We love playing for him. Everyone's willing to do anything for him. To my point of, okay, if we're willing to do everything for him, why'd we go on an 8-game losing streak?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, they're college kids. You're gonna trip, bump your toe, and things like that. So it's been a tough year for Razorback fans, just because the expectations were so high for what they had coming back.
Well, and I'm going to be the bad guy here a little bit. And, people coach different ways. I'm a firm believer that it's hard to maintain a high level of play with a quote unquote players coach.
Yeah.
Because if you're a players coach that everybody loves, usually that means you're not holding them all accountable. I don't think any of the players that I ever that ever played for me would say he's a quote unquote players coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would say he's hard. He gives us love when we deserve it. He gives us the other side when we deserve it. It's just hard to hold those guys accountable. So you look at the great coaches that have ever coached, and and I'm thinking, you're saying your Vince Lombardi's, your Bill Belichick's, your Nick Saban's, as you go down and you go to Jimmy Johnson. Some of those guys. Not a one of those guys are players coaches. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a player's coach, but you better have somebody on that. I mean, you better have one of your coordinators, or both actually, better not be players coaches. They better be holding accountable coaches, because that's where it comes down. And to me, when they showed that outpouring of love for Sam, that told me something. Mm-hmm. It just told me that he is a good guy. And everybody knows that. Everybody in the state, you could see it in his heart when he talks. But I think this team right now needs him to show that other side. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have to show it in the off season. He's got to show it in the spring. And because we just make too many mistakes. Go back to, that's what players coach. People don't understand, like, what does it mean to be a players coach, and how does that affect football? If they love you, they'll try harder. They'll try hard. And we had this conversation last week a little bit. No, I had it with somebody else. They'll try hard if they have any integrity, whoever the coach is. If they switch and made Ronald McDonald the coach tomorrow, when we play against Missouri, you don't think our kids are going to try hard? Yeah, they're going to try hard. That doesn't affect how hard you try. You need to have somebody that holds them accountable, so we don't keep getting. Remember, the thing earlier this year was the motion penalties on offense. We're having them all the time. Coaches should have went. I said a long time ago, should have went silent snap count. But regardless, hold those guys freaking accountable, and don't just go, well, it's loud. Well, it's loud freaking everywhere every Saturday if you're the visiting team. You can't just justify it like that. You justify it, you don't fix it. I mean, if I justify some of the dumb stuff I do in my relationship with my wife, I ain't going to fix it. Well, honey, you didn't take out the trash again. Freaking trash is running over into the yard. The dogs are ripping it apart. Well, honey, I worked really hard last night and I forgot to take it out. As long as I say that, I'm going to do it again next week.
That's right.
So, yeah, you have to. I mean, I would like to see if Sam's going to be there, and I'm not even sure I believe he is. I still think wait a minute, these rumors aren't helping recruiting. Yeah, Sam, you're going to be here, and then we'll relook at this again at the end of the year, maybe even after the Missouri game. see what's going on. And so I still think that could be open, and maybe not, but if it is, if it's not, and Sam's back, man, I want to see some non-player coaching for a little bit. I want to see it where they might like, oh, I wouldn't mind if Sam left. He's tough on us,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's what we need right now. That lessens the mistakes, because you and I both know, take a couple of those games that we lost, that if we eliminate some of the easy, dumb mistakes early, and it changes the whole complexion of the game. Look at the LSU game. We got 900 freaking illegal motion penalties, lose by 3 points to them. I mean, and that probably changes the season if we beat those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You go the next game with confidence, and I won't rail on about it, but I'm just saying, I just am a firm believer that we had the talent. Our expectations were high because we had talent.
Mm-hmm.
And we did not get the most out of our talent. And is that not what a coach is supposed to do? Get the most out of the talent he has.
You know, I go back to, you know, and we're going to get in. I want to get into this for a little bit about the potential OC hire and what they're going to do with the offensive coordinator's position here in a second. But, you know, I kind of felt like, as a fan, looking at when he hired Dan Enos, I looked at it as the safe, comfortable hire. It's like going in your closet and getting that old wore out pair of Nikes that you got, that you cut grass in, that are just comfortable, and you dog around the house in, you grill out in them, but you wouldn't wear them to go to church. You wouldn't wear them to go to the country club with your buddies or go play golf. It's just that old comfortable pair of shoes. And I kind of felt like when he hired Dan, he was trying to reignite something that's long gone. Because you know well as I do, offenses, they're flashy for a year or two, but these defensive coordinators get paid what they get paid because they're smart. They figure out ways to, like, you know, we were talking about, and I go back to Gus Malzahn. When Gus first came into college football in 2006, he had stuff that really in the college game nobody had seen a lot of, not on this side of the country anyway.
That's right.
You'd have seen it in Texas and you'd have seen it out in California, but you didn't see it in the Southeastern Conference. So it caught people off guard. They didn't know how to defend it. He got to Auburn, had Scam Newton down there, got a national championship out of it, and propelled his career, did what he ought to do, became a head coach. But as you watch his time at Auburn, and I've talked to a lot of Auburn fans about this, his offense became predictable because he wasn't growing with what the defenses were doing. He was running the same sets and the same schemes that he was running all the way back to when he was at Springdale. And I know, like, I've been around him, and I know you have too. He's not dumb. You know,
no, he's extremely intelligent.
Extremely intelligent human being. I mean, I sat in a Waffle House in Auburn watching him drawing plays on a napkin, just like making stuff up. And I know that's like the big thing about him. People say, you know, he's kind of borderline. He looks a little autistic to me sometimes, but it's just because he's so freaking smart. He does dumb stuff, and it becomes predictable. Same thing happened with Houston Nutt. When Houston first got here, his offense was a little flashy. They could do some things, and then once the defenses figured it out, they shut him down. I mean, they couldn't. So you've got to continue to grow, and it's the same thing whether it's in football or in leadership in your private business. If you don't continue to change and go with what the environment around you is giving you, eventually it's going to catch you and it's going to pass you, and you're going to get left in the dust. And I think that's what happened with Enos. I think that he came in and tried to run some things, and we've talked about this ad nauseum all year. It was kind of like trying to drive a square peg in a round hole with KJ Jefferson and some of the other players that we had, and, you know, go from a veer and shoot that, you know, the Briles offense to Dan's, it just didn't work. So moving from that, who do you think needs to be the offensive coordinator next year? Because I've heard all kinds of names. I mean, I've had people today alone, I've had people throw out Bob Petrino's name, which I'm going to say publicly on this podcast right now. There's no way that's going to happen.
No way.
He's unhireable in the state of Arkansas based on what I understand, the BOT's rules and the rules.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, we read that.
Based on his termination paperwork and the way it's worded, he can't work in the state of Arkansas unless there's a law changed at the State House in Little Rock. So that's.
I mean, he can't work at a state park.
No, he couldn't be a janitor
just can't do it. Yeah,
he can't work for him. So take that one, throw it in the garbage. I've heard G.J. King's name mentioned from Texas State. I've heard Ken Dorsey's name mentioned, which is interesting to me because I do know that Sam had talked to Dorsey before Bryles came along. So there may be something there. I think Dorsey, we talked about this last week, he got the short end of the stick in Buffalo. I'm trying to think of the other one's name. The young man at UNLV, Brendan Marion. I mean, but again, this is a guy that's had 1 year as an OC, and you're going to bring him to Arkansas to resurrect an offense that was one of the worst in the country. I think, Coach, this is where the money and mouth situation, I think, with the BOT and with Hunter Yurachek in this athletic department is going to come down. How much money are they willing to spend?
Yeah, and I mean, I think they'll cough up the money for an OC. It's just picking the right one. The question's going to be, is that going to be Yurachek picking it? Is that going to be Sam Pittman picking it? I don't trust Sam to pick it, to be quite honest with you. I've got friends that are FBS college coaches that know him that said he doesn't have enough connections to hire the right OC. And I know some of the guys he's hired in the past. And based off that, I'd say the same thing. What's important to remember too is this: how are we going to win games in the SEC? Mm-hmm. And are we going to out defense Alabama, Georgia? We're not. Mm-hmm. We never are. Let's hang it up. The only way we're going to win, if you think about it, how did we win? Bobby Petrino was an offensive guy. We're only going to win if we get lucky and play good defense. We can beat them that way, but we got to have dang good offense. That's the only way we're going to ever win consistently. It's worked for a million schools that hired Mike Leach because he was great on offense. Never was great on defense, but they could win 8, 9, 10, 11 games every once in a while. He's at Texas Tech being the national championship hut. We've got to have a guy that does something different, is not afraid to take chances, and whoever our head coach is, assuming it's Sam, they've got to let him call the dang plays and call whatever they want to. So if you're me, if you're me and I'm looking at it, I'm like this. I go look at the schools that are great in offense and can plug and play guys in because they get a good system, and not because. So here's what I'm not going to hire. I'm not going to hire the guy at Georgia. I mean, they got receivers that are faster than everybody else, the 2 best tight ends in the country, an offensive line that's impeccable, and everything else. I'm going to go down. I'm going to look at I'm going to look at teams that are really good at offense, that are creative, that probably at a Power 5 program, and that do things like that. I might go look at, you look at Cliff Kingsbury at Southern Cal. He's on offense. He's not calling the plays. He's a good play caller. I go and I look and go, okay, who's the guy at Washington State? They've got worse players than us. They average 424 yards a game and have a chance to beat anybody and score some points. And when they don't have an injured quarterback, and I go look and I look at the University of Arizona. They have turned their world around in 1 year, and it ain't because their defense. It's because they're in the top 30 in the country in total offense, and they can beat you running or throwing, and they're creative and they do different things. Those guys are out there, is what I'm saying. They're out there, and they can't be run the ball and play defense, because Arkansas will never win in the SEC running the ball and playing defense. We got to be able to light up the scoreboard. And Gary Patterson was the first one that ever brought me into this light. And it was beautiful. I'm an offensive guy. Gary Patterson was a defensive guy. Really good defense at TCU. The year, and it was probably 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was now, he comes out with a thought of this. Wait, I need to get away from worrying about how the defensive numbers are going to look, and I need to hire a guy that flings this thing around and can score some points. Because here was his thought process. And if we play great defense, and we're good on defense, we can beat you with great defense. But at TCU right now, we can't beat you with offense, just in case our defense has an off day, or in case they've got a plan I can't figure out how to stop. We can only beat you on defense. I want to be able to beat you with good offense too, in case our defense is having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went out and hired a guy that would fling it all over the field and was creative and wanted to be able to beat you both sides of the ball. And that way, and if just one of them's hitting, you got a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And if both of them are hitting, the other team has no chance. And that's what we need to think about, in my opinion. Well, let's quit getting the Dan Enoses and the guys like that. Dan won when he was at Alabama, and let's be honest, he probably had better players than what he had at Arkansas this year. He was at Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
So we need to go find other guys. And I'm big on guys like the ones that I just mentioned. The guys at the guy at Washington State's done a phenomenal job. Arizona's done a phenomenal job. Those guys are out there.
Yep.
Those coordinators are out there. I'm not getting one from Alabama because they got better players. I mean, when he gets here and looks at ours, he goes like, oh, we can't just run a go route and have Jalen Milroe throw it 95 yards down the field. We don't have a quarterback that runs a 4.4 and 250 pounds, and everybody has to keep two spies on, which opens up the passing game behind them. I'm not going to Ohio State where they can block for 7 seconds, and me or you could throw for 3,000 yards in that offense. I'm going to get somebody that's got a little lesser players, that's had to turn it around, be creative with guys that maybe can't block for 4 seconds, that kind of thing. And that's what I think we need to do. And because they'll pony up the money. We'll pay as much for an OC as the next guy. I mean, we paid Dan 1.3, up that to 1.5. You can get whoever you want as an OC, especially one that wants to be in the SEC and prove his worth. Because you prove your worth here, and you're a Joe Brady that was LSU for 1 year, and now you're the offensive coordinator for the Bills. And if you bring them back this year, you're a head coach in the NFL next year.
Talking about this, and I pulled it up. You said something. Got to play the Alabamas and all those. Alabama's not on the schedule next year. This is the first time since we've been in a conference we don't have to play Alabama. We don't have to play Georgia. Now, granted, we're picking Texas up next year, but it's at home. I mean, I'm going to run through the schedule with you real quick. UAPB in Little Rock.
We'll probably win that one.
Win. At Oklahoma State.
Early, they're never great early.
They might beat State early. And I wish that game, because I know when I was growing up, we played Oklahoma State every year. Back in the Hatfield days, we played them every season, home and home. And I love that game because I've got a lot of kinfolk, that are Oklahoma State people and know a lot of folks in Stillwater, do a lot of business in Northeast Oklahoma. I wish we could keep that as a home and home. I think that's a great game for the Fayetteville. It's a great game for Arkansas being able to recruit in Oklahoma. We got UAB the next week. That's a W. Go to Dallas, play A&M, come back and play La Tech. Then this is the string we have at home. We have LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. It's a murderer's row of 4 games, but it's not the same 4 games we had this season.
Yeah, and there's a lot of real home.
They're in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
And then you go to Auburn, finish the season up going to Auburn, at Mississippi State, at Missouri. Is the way the schedule sits now. Now, all the conference dates after A&M's the only one that's scheduled on the 28th, or TBA. So that they may get flip-flopped in the schedule,
right.
Something or another. But I mean, looking at that home schedule, because I think the La Tech game is set up for November the 23rd, which would be the weekend before we play Missouri in Fayetteville. So that one's the second to last game. But still, the way that schedule sets up, it's the best home schedule as far as conference games. It's the best homestand we've had in 10, 12 years as far as quality opponents, good SEC programs. I'm looking forward to Texas being in the league next year. I think it's going to be better for everybody. A lot of folks are like, it's going to hurt the SEC. I think it's just going to make it better. It's going to create more parity in the conference because it's not going to just be Alabama and Georgia anymore. There's going to be somebody else that can kind of compete with those two. And I think Texas has got to go to Athens next year and play at Georgia. So it's going to be real interesting with this schedule and how it lays out. I know the first 4 games are really the only ones that have got serious dates slapped on them right now, but I mean, they could legit start the season 3-0 next year. And I mean, I was looking at it. I mean, there's 4 guaranteed wins, and then you've got 3 others that are question marks. Now and the ones that I've got question marked is Missouri, at Auburn, which weird stuff with us in Auburn happens, and in Stillwater. I see 6 wins, another 6-6 season, and I don't know if a 6-6 year next year saves Sam's job.
Oh, there's no way 6-6 saves his job.
I don't think it does. I think he's looking for work or retiring. If they win less than 7 games next year, I think he's looking for something else to do.
I think for sure, yeah. I think he's retiring, going to the lake, and living his happy life.
Going down there to Oaklawn and betting on horses from December to March, or April
right?
Season.
Right.
But I look at what we've got, because there's talent up there. I mean, there's talent on this roster. Now, is it Georgia level, Alabama level talent? Probably not. There may be some guys here or there that are really, really good, or going to be really, really good, God willing. But we don't have the depth of an Alabama or a Georgia or an LSU. We don't have it. And and we've talked about this ad nauseum too, until high school football in Arkansas gets better, we're never going to be able to build the depth from in-state. And that's got to change. Like, you and I have talked about this. Coach Koyu was on here a couple of weeks ago. We discussed it at length. There's some things working in the background that I think will help with youth football that I'm personally working on. I know Coach is going to be helping us with. Keith Grayson, that was on last week, is going to be helping us with to try to help grow the game of football in the state of Arkansas, get it back where it needs to be, where it's important again. I think it's important in certain areas, but it's not important in the whole state. I think there's some areas in the state that it needs to be revitalized, and needs to be some money thrown in it. Again, it's just like with this offensive coordinator thing with the offensive line or whatever they're going to do in the portal. It all comes down to one thing, and that's money.
I brought up top offenses in the country. Yep. And you could look yards per game, yards per, there's a lot of things you could look at. The one that I'm looking at right now is really an amazing stat to me.
Yep.
The leading offensive team in the country in yards per play. So when they snap the ball, they make this many yards. What do you think the leading yards per play is? How much they average on every single offensive snap? That's even taking a knees, incomplete passes, everything else. What do you think? How many yards you think the leading? And they're a Power 5 college.
I'm gonna think, because I'm thinking NFL in my head, so I'm gonna think somewhere between 7.5 and 9 yards.
Okay, 8.6 yards. They're averaging almost a first down every time they snap the ball. Now, here's the part that is insane to me. They play in the SEC, and they're in the same side of the West as we are.
Yes.
LSU averages, and they're so far above everybody else compared percentage-wise, it ain't even close.
Really?
Nobody else is above 8. They're 8.6. It's LSU.
Wow.
8.6 yards in the SEC West every time you snap the ball. That is amazing. I told everybody at the beginning of the season, Brian Kelley is way better in his second and third year once he's got a team. Now, my question is, here's my real question. I don't know the answer to this, Matt. Is Brian Kelley calling the plays?
Yeah.
For LSU?
That's the question.
Or is his OC? If his OC's not, can we go get that guy?
Coach,
they do have a great quarterback, but everybody thought our quarterback was, there was the argument. There were preseason polls that had ours, KJ Jefferson, better than Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. And Jaden Daniels arguably, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute too, arguably should win the Heisman.
He should win the Heisman. There's no question.
The year. He's really done some really special things for the Tigers. Now, I know they've lost some games, but it's more on the defensive side of the football, which again,
for the first time ever, their defense wasn't any good.
No, and that's kind of indicative of Brian Kelley.
Yeah.
His offensive coordinator is Mike Denbrock. I've never heard of the dude. I don't know who he is. He's not somebody that's familiar to me. I'm pulling his bio up because I've never heard of this guy. Joined him in January of 2002. Apparently spent 15 years with Brian Kelley previously. Worked with him at Grand Valley State. and then 7 years at Notre Dame from 10 to 16 when they were making those runs to the playoffs every year. Got housed by Alabama, I think, 2012. But he was also Jalen Daniels' OC at Arizona State. So I think there was some relationship there, and they wanted to bring him in there. The best all-around season in school history, averaged 34.5 points per game and 453 yards a game, 183 on the ground, almost 270 passing. Set a school record for touchdowns, rushing touchdowns this year with 39 to break the previous mark of 37, sitting 13. Can we get a guy like that?
562 a game. Well, here's why I think you could. Tell him, hey, you got a chance to come in here and turn a team around.
Yeah.
And you won't have anybody looking over your shoulder. I mean, he's probably got Brian Kelley looking over his shoulder. Brian Kelly's an offensive guy. If he's calling the plays, he's got Brian Kelley looking over his shoulder. You don't have anybody looking over your shoulder. This can be all you, and nobody's ever going to. Because right now, if you want to hire that guy, everybody's like, is it Brian Kelly's offense or is it him? And so that's the way you'd have to sell him on getting him here. Or just say, what do you make at LSU? He's saying 1.7. We say, we'll give you 1.9. $200,000 extra a year is not bad.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the top 5 offenses, it's LSU, Oregon, North Carolina, Georgia, and Liberty. Now, Liberty is interesting because I think Jamie Chadwell's calling plays at Liberty. He's a former coach at Coastal. So I don't think you're going to get, I think he's making the same money Sam is. So I don't see you being able to go get a Jamie Chadwell out of that cushy, but I don't think they're going to spend that kind of money, frankly, Coach. But you look down the list, and one of the guys we talked about, G.J. King, I mean, he's 11th in the country in total offense. And I know he's calling the plays at Texas State.
He is for sure.
Here's
what I'm still looking at: yards per play instead of yards per game.
Yep.
And you look at New Mexico State.
Yep. Who just beat Auburn on Saturday, by the way.
Yeah, at Auburn.
And I think you made a little money on that game, didn't you, Coach?
I did, yeah. I picked that one, and I mean, I just thought the money line and played them on the money line and on the thing. I just figured Auburn was hate to say it, they're so up and down. I think they're a little bit of a masquerade of a good team at times, and figured they'd be a little down after playing Arkansas, just come off a high. But that Jerry Kill, he has done an amazing job at a couple of different places he's been at. And I don't know, I actually applied to be his OC this year, at the beginning of the year. And now I see why he didn't pick me. I mean, dang, these guys are 10th in the country in yards per play. That's amazing what he's done. And then go beat Auburn. That's definitely big time. But I'm just saying, those guys are out there. Guys are out there. We don't need to get what you referred to back earlier as a Nike, the old pair of Nikes that just feels good, feels comfortable. Because comfortable ain't going to get us anything. It's just not in the SEC, not unless you're Alabama, maybe Auburn with Scam Newton, as you like to call him, or somebody like that. LSU, Ole Miss. I mean, you got to build out score them, because you ain't gonna build out defense them ever in the history of ever.
So it's interesting that you say New Mexico State's offensive coordinator. The guy's name's Tim Beck. Guess where he played his college football at?
Where?
Pittsburgh State. Guess who else played his college football at Pittsburgh State?
Who?
Sam Pittman.
Really?
Yes, sir.
There's a little connection.
And they ain't too.
Now, I'll give you. I'll buy you. I'll buy you lunch next time I see you if you can tell me what their. If you didn't look at their mascot, if you can tell me what their mascot is.
They're an Aggie.
No, they're the greatest mascot.
Cowboy, but it's they're called the New Mexico State Aggies.
No, I mean Pittsburgh State.
Oh, Pittsburgh State, Gorillas.
Gorilla, very good.
The Gorillas.
That's my favorite. I think they're the only gorillas, because you don't see many gorillas in America, let alone in Kansas.
And that's the other thing I was going to say. They're not in Pittsburgh.
No, they're in Kansas.
I had this argument with my son the other night because they've sent some information. He was thinking, Dad, I don't want to go to Pennsylvania. I said, son, they're not in Pennsylvania. They're in Kansas.
They're in Kansas. They're in the left half of. They're in the bottom half of Arkansas. They're in Kansas.
They are in Kansas. So, Real quick, we're gonna jump into our sponsor, then we're gonna jump into the Missouri game. Barley and Vine in Bentonville, Arkansas. If you're in Northwest Arkansas this weekend on Black Friday and you're looking for something to do before the football game, go to our friends at Barley and Vine in Bentonville. They've been a key sponsor for Big Pig Energy all season long. If you're ready for mouth-watering tavern-style pizzas and a drink menu that'll make you say cheers, head to downtown Bentonville and see our friends at Barley and Vine. They specialize in the hottest craft pizzas in Northwest Arkansas, ranging from banging cheese pies to their chef-inspired specialty pizzas that you can't find anywhere else. But that ain't all. They've got 32 different beers on tap featuring local brewery favorites and a carefully curated selection of regional craft beers. Maybe you're more of a wine person. They've got you covered there too. They have a choice selection of wine from around the globe and from Arkansas. I'm pretty sure they've got Whitaker's on the house. Don't miss out on their pint and a slice combos Friday and Saturdays. Get a slice of their house pizza and a featured beer of the week for $7. You can't find a deal like that anywhere else in Northwest Arkansas. Go to Barley and Vine, where pizza, beer, and wine live in perfect harmony. Their interests extend past food and beer, though. At Barley and Vine, they're all about that Big Pig energy and support the Razorbacks every time they take the field or the court. Shout out to Trish and the people at Barley and Vine. They've been a big sponsor for us all year. We really appreciate them and their partnership with Big Pig Energy this season. Diving into the Missouri Tigers, it's another one of these, and I call it a Basil game because it's another trophy game that he made up. God love him. I give him hell on Twitter every chance I get because I'm like, okay, so Texas is coming in. What trophy are you going to make? We got to have a trophy game. So Battle Line trophy game, Missouri, and I'm a little shocked with this line. Missouri's a 7.5 point favorite in Fayetteville, over and under 54.5. That was as of yesterday. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff on CBS on Friday, Black Friday. Missouri leads this series against the Hogs 10-4. Arkansas fans don't like to hear that. They don't like to think about it. They look at Missouri as a little brother, but Missouri owns our ass. The latest win came last season up in Como. It was a tough game. Missouri pulled it out late, but since they joined the SEC, Missouri is 7-2 against the Razorbacks. So out of those 10 games, they're 7-2. That ain't great for the Hogs. ESPN's matchup predictor has the Tigers winning. This is 71% nationwide. The country believes that Missouri's going to win. This is where it gets really interesting, Coach. Missouri's 6-3 against the spread this year. Arkansas is 5-5. But Arkansas against the spread as an underdog, we're 4-0 against the spread as an underdog this season. So I'm interested to see, and this is the same thing we've talked about all year long, which offense is going to show up and play football on Saturday.
Well, and which defense too. You don't want the Auburn one to show back up.
Well, there's a couple of things in play here because you got senior day. You got guys that are, I think there's 24 guys getting 24 guys that are getting announced as their seniors, and they're going to get their plaques and their big frame jerseys and all those things. Family's going to be there. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving. It's the second weekend of duck season, second weekend or third weekend of gun season for deer hunters. We kind of saw some evidence from the fan base last week. They really didn't show up in force against FIU. Missouri's rumored to come in and want to try to do a black and gold stripe out inside our stadium. But I watched that Missouri game against Florida, and Florida had them beat. I mean, Billy Napier let them off the hook, and the refs helped them a little bit late. What can Coach Pittman, what's his message this week to these guys? Because they got no bowl game to play for. I mean, Coach, I'm sure you've been there at some point in your career. I know with all the success you had to have had a season.
In my entire career, I coached for a lot of years. I was there two times. When the last game didn't matter.
Yep.
And you really just challenge the guys. I say challenge them. You go out there and say, listen, if I'm going to go out and you schedule me a game of Monopoly against that dude over there, I'm freaking all in and trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to take all his money and send him to the house. And if we play cards, I'm doing it. If we play dominoes, I'm doing. I mean, if you're a football player, for all you put in for yourself, even if you're a selfish person, you got to go out there and be balls to the wall for this thing, because you sacrifice time and effort and hardship and physical pain. And now, if you're a team guy, and I tell them this, if you're a team guy, do you not have someone on this team you love that wants to win, that you want to kill yourself for, get out there and go all in? But you don't need to have a bowl game to play for. You shouldn't have to have anything to play for except for they're lined up and trying to beat me.
Yeah.
They're lined up and trying to beat my boys. And that ought to be plenty for you. And you do that. And then, but you know, one thing that could benefit us. You and I talked about this a little bit before the start. Are any of the guys going to go get in the portal?
Mm-hmm.
If you are, the mentality for the portal, and I know this because I've been there, the mentality for portal kids is one of two things. I'm not going to get myself hurt in this game, so I can be ready to go in spring ball in 5 months. Or I'm going to get my last game on film.
Mm-hmm.
So I might move up my stock and hire a FBS guy or a Power 5 guy, or, you know, winning to, you know, whatever. So I might even, I'll be honest with you. I might even be honest. I'm so transparent as a coach anyway. I just look at them. I might say, hey, for those you got to think about leaving, you know, hey, that's fine. This ought to be your game to get some more on film.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, as one last time.
Yeah.
Come together as Razorbacks and do that. And that's what you do. And I think that's what you have to do. And I think that's your only shot, to be honest with you.
I'll be honest. I think this game's going to come down more because Missouri's done a 180 from last year. Last year, their defense was really, really good. They were locked down. They were effective. This year, they've been a little leaky on defense. Have allowed some teams that, frankly, shouldn't have been on the field with them to hang around longer than they should have based on what they were doing offensively. But I think this game is more of our defense. What can Travis Williams dial up, slow down Brady Cook, Luther Burden, and Cody Schrader? Because they can run it, they can throw it, and then they can RPO you to death. This read zone option stuff that they run just slap eats the linebackers up. I mean, Florida was biting on stuff. Why Billy Napier didn't go cover 8 and pull everybody back at the end of the game Saturday night is beyond me. He stayed cover 2 with 2 safeties for most of the fourth quarter. And I'm sitting there going, you got the lead with a minute to go, a minute and a half. Drop back. 3 guys, rush 3 guys. If you want to spy a linebacker, leave a linebacker sitting over top, but drop everybody else. Don't let and they were, I mean, Brady Cook was, I mean, I see this pun intended, he was cooking because he was hitting dots, getting them in chunks, 20 yards at a time, 15 yards at a time. I think Travis Williams, this game's going to be more about what can he do to slow down Missouri offensively. Because I think the Arkansas offense is going to be ready to play. I think KJ is going to, like you said, I think there's some guys, the KJ Jeffersons. Unfortunately, we're not going to have Rashad Dominion. We're not going to have Rocket Sanders. Dominion's got a meniscus, had to have surgery. Rocket's having he had a torn labrum in his shoulder, going to have surgery. He's done for the year. But, you know, like we talked about earlier, Isaiah Gustavus looked really, really strong Saturday night. I expect him to get a lot of carries on Saturday. AJ Green looked okay. Dominique Johnson looked a little more productive than he's looked. But I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again tonight. I want to see some of these guys we haven't seen, because at this point, Sam's got nothing to lose.
Right.
If he truly has got Hunter's got his back, and he's going to come back next year, what do you got to lose? Because you're not burning red shirts because these guys hadn't played.
Right.
Put the best 11 on both sides of the ball and go get it.
I really wish we would start Jacoby Criswell.
I do too.
Now, I'm going to give you the good and the bad about Missouri. You want the for Razorback fans, you want the good news first, the bad news first.
I'd give them the bad news because they're negative as hell anyway. So,
all right. The bad news is this: they are entering the fourth quarter. They're 9-2. Okay, yep. So they won 9 games. If they're 9-1 right now, they're in talks for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
In the SEC, you're 9-1 with a chance to go to the dang championship game. Now, here's the deal. They were ahead of LSU in the fourth quarter and lost.
Mm-hmm.
They only lost to Georgia by 9.
Mm-hmm.
at Georgia. That's the mark of their only 2 losses. They were winning one of them in the fourth against LSU, and LSU exploded on offense the last quarter. And you talked about that leaky defense that cost them, but they're winning that game in the fourth quarter, or they're 10-1, and they play Georgia as well as anybody at Georgia with Tennessee coming up the next week. That's scary for Arkansas fans. Now, here's the good news for Arkansas fans. I'm going to list to you their 1-score games, which is maybe why we should all bet Arkansas here.
Yeah.
1-score games. 1 score. 1 score is so minuscule in a game of football. A bad call, a ball bounces funny on a fumble or on a punt or on a kickoff. 1-score games. Middle Tennessee State, Kansas State, Memphis, Florida. All those are 1-score games. And they lost LSU and Georgia, so there's 7 out of their 11 1-score or losses games. I mean, this is not, they just don't beat teams bad. The non-1-score games were in South Dakota. I mean, come on. They're not going to be in a 1-score game. Vanderbilt, nobody's in a 1-score game with Vanderbilt. So the only 2 decent teams that they beat decently were Kentucky, and they started off down 14-0 against Kentucky. And Georgia wasn't a 1-score game, but it was darn close to a 1-score game. It was a 9-point game.
Yep.
So, I mean, you know, they play 1-score games. They don't like to beat anybody bad. And you give a team like in this kind of is it a border rivalry? You know, it's not like the LSU one, but I'll say like this: they beat us so much in the series that if Arkansas players don't have a little problem with Missouri, then you can't get up for a game. And I think with the fact that they play a lot of 1-score games, I think Arkansas ends up playing this thing close with a chance to win. And that's what I said against Florida, and they did. And that's what I said against LSU, and they did. And I just feel like it's one of those games again. You know, I joke with Justin and Wes. I've got my pulse on this Razorback team as far as game to game goes, and so far they're showing me. Now I missed this last one. I said they'd win by. Cover the spread. The spread's 28. I said they'd win by 30, and I thought they would. They just, you know, but you don't guess Little's going to miss 2 field goals.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't get, and I did miss, and I did not know they had a Mitchell on their team that was going to be responsible for 2 or 3 touchdowns, just on big plays. But I think Arkansas's got a real chance Friday.
You know, looking at it, I'm trying to get myself up for it. You know, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Coach. I'm kind of ready for the season to be over. You know, it's just been kind of little. You know, it's that kind of year, but I'm gonna be in the same spot I've sat in the last, 11 weeks. I'm gonna be sitting in the same spot, probably wearing the same shirt, maybe even wearing the same ball cap. But I'm gonna be sitting in the same spot 3 o'clock on Friday. I think they're gonna have to come out and play out of their minds offensively. I think defense is gonna show up. They didn't play the last couple of weeks. The defense has not played great, and I think some of that's just it's the end of the year. They've lost kind of that want to of the bowl game, that apple at the end of the brass the rainbow, sort of so to say. I think it's on Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson and Deke Adams and Wilson, Coach Wilson, those guys, to get these guys on defense playing like they played against Alabama, like they played against LSU, getting after the quarterback. Because the one thing that was driving me nuts, and we didn't talk about this, about the FIU game, FIU's quarterback's the most sacked quarterback in the country. We only had 3 true blitzes Saturday night, and all 3 of those blitzes got home. If I'm the DC, if I'm Travis Williams, I'm blitzing the crap. I'm sending 5 guys every dang snap. I'm going after him. I'm not letting him stand in the pocket, because
I'm with you on that.
That just didn't make a lot of sense to me Friday night. Now, again, playing the 4-2, they really haven't done a whole lot from a linebacker's perspective. I know Hudson Clark got in and got a tackle for loss Saturday night that looked really, really good. I'd like to see him do some more of that, because bless his heart, he's a liability in coverage. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I got kinfolk that went to Missouri, and we bet a little bit back and forth with family. You know, we talk a little trash. So because my people are all from the boot heel, so I just don't want to lose to them again because I hear about it every time we lose to them. It doesn't matter whether it's basketball, cornhole, football. I'm going to hear about it.
Well, you know, I think they've got a really good running back. He's good. That Schrader's a good running back.
Yeah.
And their quarterback's pretty good. You know, I looked up where they are in total offense. They're in the top 30.
Yeah, they're not.
Arkansas sits at 99.
Yeah.
And you know, that doesn't look good. But like you said, their defense is kind of leaky. We'll just see. We'll just see. Now, and those guys that came out and said, hey, when we found out Sam was there, man, there was guys waiting to get in the portal. This is a big spark for us. Well, if you mean what you say and say what you mean, this is your chance to show it.
That's right.
This is your chance to show Yurachek you made the right decision. We'll play harder for this guy than they will for their guy. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I'm a big Eli Drinkwitz fan, and I'm pulling for the guy because the guy is honest. I've watched him in recruiting. I've spent time down there in March, and I like the way he handles his coaches. I like the way he handles visiting coaches. I like the way he recruits and handles recruits. He's a no-nonsense. He's not hugging and chest bumping them and butt bumping them and with guys he doesn't know and flashing signs at them and all that. He just says, hey, you come to Missouri and you act like you're supposed to act, go to class like you're supposed to go to class, and play on the field like you've shown you could in high school, you'll have a chance to play for us.
Mm-hmm.
And earn some time. He didn't promise them anything and all that. And you know, that's old school and that's the way I like it. And he's not flashy and he's not funny and he's not a lot, but he's a guy's guy that you're just like, you know, he's a guy you'd want to be your best friend and know he's not going to mess around on with you with your girlfriend and you can trust your daughter with him and all that. And there needs to be more guys like that. So I'm a big fan. Now, I'm not saying I'm pulling on them to win, but I am saying this. If they come out and beat our butt, and they go 10-2 this year, Arkansas needs to rethink the whole way they're doing everything in football because there's no way in heck Missouri should be able to field a better team than Arkansas in the history of ever, in my opinion.
They should.
No freaking way.
Because if you think Arkansas high school football is lacking, go to Missouri and look around.
Oh, God.
It's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah.
We're going to get into Coach Kelley's pick 'em real quick. Before that, we want to make sure we give another shout out to our last sponsor, Lifestyle Print Company, Better Mind, Better Body, also known as BMBB Lifestyle, established in 2016, founded and based out of Vancouver, Washington. Started as a men's mental health group, now leads a community in mental health awareness through service projects and custom-made apparel. That is your source for Big Pig Energy t-shirts and gear. Keep in mind, guys, as this is the last episode of the season, we may have a recruiting episode in December on signing day like we did last year, but as the last official episode, we've got the contest for t-shirt sales still going on. Go to bmbblifestyle.com and buy your t-shirts there. We've still got the Twitter war going on with the t-shirts on that side. We've also got the Big Pig Energy, just regular logo t-shirts that we're selling. All the profits from those t-shirts go to the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club in Northwest Arkansas. We are not making a dime. Me and Coach don't do this to get paid. We do it because we like to sit around and talk ball. We're giving this money 100% of the profits go to the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club. So help us support the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club. Go buy some t-shirts before Christmas. It'd be a great stocking stuffer. They're reasonably priced and they're cool looking shirts. I think I got 16 of them. Different form or fashion. I think I bought one of each that we had for sale. So it's kind of cool. I wear them to the gym. I get really weird looks because some of them say some really wild stuff with this hashtag contest. So, but it's a lot of fun. We're doing it for good cause. Last pick 'em of the year. We've got some really, really good games this weekend. First one I picked is obvious. Egg Bowl Thursday night. Of course, next year I'm hoping you have the Egg Bowl and have the Texas A&M Texas game again like it used to be. Those were some classic matchups, and now I've got picture-in-picture on my big screen so I can watch them split screen at the same time. But Ole Miss is going down to Starkville. Mississippi State fired their coach a couple of weeks ago. Ole Miss is favored by 10.5. Over and under is 55.5. Coach, who you got? The Landshark Rebel Bears, or the Bulldogs of Mississippi State?
I think Ole Miss Ole Miss wins the game. I'm not sure if they cover. If I had to bet, I'd probably bet on Ole Miss. But I think they win the game. The Egg Bowl is always weird. You know what I think of? I think of the guy that hiked his leg.
Elijah Moore.
When he scored, was it Elijah Moore?
Elijah Moore.
Wow. All right. He's in the NFL, actually pretty good.
Playing in the league.
And then I think of that and that 15-yard penalty they caused, and they ended up missing the field goal and losing the game. Missing the extra point and losing the game or whatever. But so always some cool stuff in that game if you think of that. Cool. But I think Ole Miss wins, and if I had to bet covers, I think they probably cover. I think the game goes under.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Lane Kiffin is looking for an opportunity, because here's what Ole Miss is facing. They've won their 10th game already. They're 10-2.
I think they're 9-2.
9-2, excuse me. He needs to win this game.
Yeah, needs this for his 10th.
To get his 10th win. That would be the first time in history that they've had 3 10-win seasons under one sitting head coach. It's never happened.
Wow.
The previous guy to do it, you got to go all the way back to Johnny Vaught in 59 and 60, since they'd had back-to-back 10-win seasons. Now, one of those seasons, well, I think 59 and 60 won the SEC championship both years. So it's imperative for Lane. And I think with the Texas A&M job being open, it's really interesting what's going to happen with Kiffin, because if I'm him, I'm definitely looking at College Station going, hey, I got way more money. I got way more talent available, and I don't have to go as far to recruit. Like, I'd have to look at that job if I was Lane Kiffin. That's me. I think they're going to, unless something crazy happens, and it usually does in this game. I think Ole Miss is going to win. I think they're going to win big. I think they're going to hit the over, because I feel like Lane is going to put it on Mississippi State. I really do, because Mississippi State, I mean, they're playing with house money right now. I mean, they're bad. We should have never lost to those guys. We shouldn't. Let's just be honest. Iron Bowl, Alabama at Auburn. Bama is favored by 14.5. Coach, if you've not followed Iron Bowl Twitter before, you need to go check out Iron Bowl Twitter, because them people are. Do you think Arkansas fans are nuts? I have literally sat and looked at in the last couple of days, and this guy from Alabama, it's the tweet of the year. It says Harvey Updike, 2 trees. Jimmy Rain, billions of trees. Oh, the hypocrisy. An Auburn fan. So I'm in a house with an Auburn fan. My wife's a big Auburn fan. Brother-in-law is too, but I've trained my nephews, my 4-year-old and 2-year-old nephews, to say we pick Suey. Bama's favored by 14.5 at Jordan Hare. Coach, Bama or Auburn? I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. I mean, Hugh Freeze got shithoused Saturday night. I mean, that was embarrassing.
Yeah, and I think because that they fight, and I think they keep it close at halftime. Yep. And then I think Alabama obliterates them in the second half.
Yeah, I think it's going to hit the over. I think Bama's going to beat them by 21. I just don't think. I'm kind of like you. I think it's going to be close at half, and Milroe's going to play outside his mind in the second half, and they're going to just run them off the field. This game, the next game we've got picked, Florida State at Florida. We picked this for our friends Alyssa Orange and Courtney Mims. It's a battle of KNWA. Alyssa's a Florida State grad, Courtney's a Florida grad. So they talk a lot of trash about their prospective universities. I think if Jordan Travis doesn't break his leg Saturday night, this game has probably got a larger spread, but they cut it down to 6.5 points. Over and under is 50.5 in the swamp. Coach, again, your quarterback, Jordan Travis, potentially a Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, I don't know if you saw the play, but I've seen it a couple of times, and it was up there with Alex Smith and Joe Theismann, in my opinion. But kid broke his leg, and I hope he heals up and gets back to where he was. But you got the Noles or the Gators?
Gators are gonna eat the Seminoles.
Wow.
Not bad, but I think they're gonna win.
Wow. I'm going the other way. I think the Noles are going to get them.
They should. They got a better team.
I think they've got a better football team. I think Mike Norvell is going to have to do some things creatively with that backup quarterback to keep him clean, because he doesn't move as well as Travis does.
Yeah. I just think Travis moving well has been a big part of their offense, buying extra time.
Yep.
I don't think they're calling the greatest plays. He's making some of them out of nothing. And, to be quite honest with you, Florida showed up last week against Missouri. They're still playing for a bowl game. That's going to be a bet on for me is Florida getting the 6.5, probably up 7 by game time, for sure. And may pepper the money line a little bit, thinking they're going to win it straight up.
I'm going with Coach Cornrows and Florida State. I think they've got more than Florida's got. I think losing the way they lost last weekend took a lot of air out of the tank with Billy Napier. I know the boosters down there are very unhappy with the product that's been put on the field in year 2 under Coach Napier. But he does have the number 2 recruiting class coming in next year, so it's going to get interesting as the season goes at the end of the season, because I think if Florida State blows them out at home, Billy may be looking for a job come Monday. Recruiting class or no recruiting class, he may be out of work. He won't be out of work long. Somebody will get a good DC out of it, but I think he'll be looking for a job if they lose bad. 4th game on the slate, Clemson at South Carolina. Clemson's favored by 7, over and under is 51.5. You got the Dabo Tigers or the Clemson Fighting Gamecocks?
I think Clemson's going to clean house.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is I don't know if it'll be the nail in Shane Beamer's coffin, but I think it's going to be bad. They like to play Sandstorm in Columbia, and I don't think they'll be playing it very much Saturday night. Next game on the slate, and this is a bunch of good rivalry games. Thursday, Friday, Saturday is going to be some great football. Kentucky at Louisville. Louisville is set up to play for the ACC championship next week. First week of December. Louisville's favored by 7 at home. Over and under is 50.5. You got the Wildcats or the Cardinals?
Cardinals all the way.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting bet. I think it's closer to 7 points. And the reason I say that is because Mark Stoops does some things defensively that I don't know that Louisville has seen this year. And for that reason, I think Louisville wins, but I think it's less than 7. I think it's going to be closer to like 1 or 2, 3 points. It's not going to be 7 points. Oregon State at Oregon. Oregon's favored at home, 13.5, over and under 62.5. This is a battle of DJ Ugalele. You believe I can say that word? Ugalele.
Good work.
And Bo Nix, Birmingham product, former Auburn Tiger, which Auburn fans are just befuddled that this cat's went out to Oregon in 2 years, worked himself into a Heisman candidate. Bo played his mind out last week. I mean,
he did, and became the leader for the Heisman as far as betting lines.
That's right.
This guy's usually pretty good at that stuff.
He's looked pretty good. If you'd have said that 2 years ago, I'd have said there's no way that kid's ever going to win.
You and me both. I would have never guessed that in a million years.
So you got the Beavers or the Ducks?
Oh, I just think Oregon's too much, and they needed, Dan Lanning did what I talked about. Gary Patterson did at TCU. He went out there, and everybody's like, "Oh, piss! He's going to make them a defensive team. They're so good at offense." He didn't. He's like, "Hey, I'm not screwing this offense. Y'all are really good over there. I'm just going to be the defensive guy, make y'all better at defense." He's done it. It's worked. And Oregon State's good. They're way better than anybody thought they were going to be. And they played Washington good last week. Had a really good season. Pac-12's tough this year. They haven't been tough in a long time. Played Arizona at a 3-point game. Who's in the top 25. Washington's undefeated. They played them to a 2-point game. They're really good. I think it'll be a little closer than the 2-touchdown spread, but I think Oregon wins it between 7 and 10 points, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I got the Ducks. I think it's going to be one of those games where Bo Nix is probably going to show out. I think he's going to show out again this week. He's hot. He has been for the last couple of weeks.
And that Oregon State defense is really good, though, man.
Really good on the back end. I mean, Oregon State, if you look at what they've put into the NFL in the last 4 or 5 years, They've put a lot of DBs in the league in the last 4 or 5 years out of Oregon State. And Dallas has been has got a couple of those guys from Oregon State late in drafts, and they have been very, very good ball players. Second to last game on the slate, this one's a big one. Ohio State at Michigan. Michigan's favored by 3.5 at home. No Jim Harbaugh. He's still suspended, which is, to me, in my estimation, is the dumbest suspension I've ever seen of a coach in my life. Over and under is 46.5 on this game. The winner of this game likely is the one that goes to the college football playoff. So you got the Buckeyes. Michigan won last year down in Columbus. First time they beat Ohio State in forever. Jim Harbaugh hadn't. I mean, he was entering in Bo Schembechler territory as far as, or Jim Cooper, not Bo Schembechler, Jim Cooper territory. Could not beat his rival up until last year. You got the Buckeyes or the Wolverines on Saturday, Coach?
Yeah, I hate that Harbaugh's not coaching on the sideline is idiotic. It's just idiotic. You're punishing a bunch of kids, and they've still been winning. They don't look nearly as good to me, but I am just still not sold on Ohio State's quarterback. I still think Michigan finds a way to win this game, and I think they might win it by double digits even without Harbaugh.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Coach. I think Michigan's got it going on both sides of the football. The one thing that I like, quarterback is tough. Running back they got's even tougher. I mean, I don't know if you saw that dude after the game the other day when they played Penn State. That joker had a 2-inch gash in his forehead, blood running down. That's the kind of football player I like to be around. You know, blood running in his eyes. It still runs for 180 yards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm like you. I think Michigan's going to I think they're going to house them. I don't think Ohio State's got a shot. And there's some Ohio State fans that watch our podcast that are going to be like, oh, you know, I just think Michigan's players, you know, we talked about Arkansas's locker room playing for Sam Pittman. I think their players are playing for Jim Harbaugh right now.
I think they are. Here's a question for you. All right. And we kind of hit on it last week a little bit. All right. Let's say Alabama wins this weekend, and both of us think they will. Georgia wins, and both of us think they will. And they play in the SEC championship. If Alabama beats Georgia by less than a touchdown, 3 points, is Alabama the SEC champion? Will for sure be in the playoffs, correct?
I think so, yeah.
If they beat Georgia by 3, so Georgia has won 28 games in a row. They're the 2-time defending champ, and the only game they lose is to Alabama in the championship game by 3. Do they still go?
I think you still end up, and we talked about this last week, I think if Georgia loses to Alabama by less than 7,
yeah,
I think Georgia's still in.
Okay, so both of them are in.
Yeah, I think they're still in. And then you'd have, if Michigan runs out, I think Michigan's in.
If Ohio State runs out, they're in.
Yeah, either one of those teams.
Is there any way that this game's a 3-point game and they let both of them in?
I don't think so.
Okay. So one of them gets in. Now, if Texas wins out and they've got one loss and it's to Alabama and Alabama's in, is Texas in?
Here's where I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in your plan because I know where your head's going. I think Texas is going to lose Texas Tech.
I think they do too. I really do. But let's say they win and then go win the Big 12 championship game. Yep. Let's say they win out and they've got one loss and they've got a win against Alabama, who's in.
Yeah.
In our hypothetical, do they go then?
Man, that's a tough one. I think you got to look at the head-to-head, and at that point, Bama might get dropped out.
Even if they win the SEC championship game,
I think they might get dropped out on the head-to-head.
Okay, I see it now. Okay, so you still got 4 teams in there. What about the Pac-12?
Here's where it's going to get interesting, and this is where I look at strength of schedule. I look at these teams historically, and I go, okay, who's going to be that? Because the committee, at the end of the day, let's just be honest for a minute. The committee don't give a crap what 4 teams are in there, but they don't want what happened last year.
Right. They don't want a blowout.
They don't want another blowout because when blowouts going on, other than the diehards, what happens? They
Yeah,
lose
nobody
viewers.
yeah.
They and it hurts their ad revenue. It hurts the TV. I mean, everything gets affected there. So you've got to put it in a situation, because Washington got in several years ago, played Alabama. Alabama just run through them like shit through a goose. Now, different Alabama team, different Washington team, but I still don't think the Pac-12, as good as they've been offensively, I still don't think they play good enough defense and have the studs on defense to go head to head with a team from the SEC, whether it's Alabama or Georgia. I think they get run through pretty quick. I don't even know that they've got good enough defensive players to play against teams from the Big Ten. And that was the big argument with the Big Ten the last 10 years, was every time the Big Ten would get in the playoffs, other than Ohio State that one time,
Right,
which they were loaded on both sides of the ball. That's when Zeke Elliott was there, I think 2012, 2014, whatever it was. You take that one team out, every other time the Big 12 or Big 10's been in there, they've got run through. I mean, TCU got through last year on sheer will. I mean, they willed themselves to that. It was but by the time they got to Georgia, and I know a lot of guys lost a lot of money because they thought, oh, TCU, man, I'm like, guys, y'all are crazy. Georgia's gonna kill them dudes. Georgia put half their defense. I think 9 of their defensive players went in the first 3 rounds of the draft last year.
Yeah.
I think the Pac-12, if Texas wins, I think the Pac-12 might get left out unless Washington's undefeated.
Yeah. Now Washington's undefeated. I think they're in.
They have to be in.
But I think I think right now, if we had to have one team to play a game to save our families,
yeah,
I think I might pick Oregon.
Yeah.
Here's why. Dan Lanning from Georgia has changed their defense. While we are looking, going, well, the Pac-12 is never good at defense, I beg to differ on Oregon. In an offensive-laden conference, they're giving up 16 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
In a conference that that plays offense only, and you're talking Washington, top 5 offense, USC, top 5 offense, and they beat both of those teams. And against Washington, they barely lost to Washington.
Yeah.
At Washington, but against both those teams, they easily could have beat them. They beat USC against when they were hot. Deion Sanders' Colorado team held them to 0 till the last minute of the game. And regardless of what you say about Colorado, because I don't like them, their offense was darn good.
Yeah.
And they held them to 0 till there's a minute left and put the subs in, gave them 6 points. They're a good team. I think one of those teams makes it for sure. And I think that's going to be Oregon. I think Oregon's going to be in. I think Texas is going to be out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Big 12's left out completely. They've been leaving the Pac-12 out. They always leave a conference out. But here's the question. Florida State could easily go undefeated. If they go undefeated, could they get left out?
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer is yes without Travis.
Yeah.
I think the committee looks and go, oh yeah, you went undefeated, but you don't have there's no way you can hold up against these teams with a backup quarterback.
You bring up something interesting, and I'm gonna throw this name at you, and I want to see what you have to say. Sean Lewis at Colorado. If you look at what he did offensively at Kent State, 2020, 21, 22.
Yeah.
The most innovative offensive coordinators in the country.
Yeah, there's a name. I wouldn't mind that.
He's only making $850 at Colorado.
Okay.
He's had issue with Sanders this year. They've He took play calling responsibilities away from him because he didn't like the way he was doing with Shadeur. Sean Lewis may be looking for an out.
Yeah.
I think
that's a good one.
That would be a good Hunter check. If you're listening, you need to call that guy
he did a great job with Sanders, because you can say what you want to. I don't think Shadeur Sanders is all that.
Yeah.
I really don't. Holds the ball too long. He had some great offensive players. Their offensive line wasn't great, but he had some great offensive players. That Hunter kid can go. The running back so fast. I mean,
he smoked
some guy.
Ball player.
Yeah, and he did a good job. You're right. He did a great job with that offense. I like that. I'd take that.
I'd take that because we could get him cheap.
Yeah. I'd take that.
Comparable to what we'd be looking other places. I mean, you double his salary. Who wouldn't take double his salary to come?
Oh, he would take it. There's zero question. You
You
don't
know-
even have to double it. Offer him 1.1, he's here.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah, but give him $250,000 more, he's here.
Go get you a new offensive line coach.
Yeah.
Last game on the schedule, so one everybody cares about, Mizzou at Arkansas. Mizzou's favored by 7.5, over and under 54.5. Coach, you got the Tigers or the Hogs on Saturday?
Tigers win, Hogs cover the spread.
I hate to say this, and my friends and my family's gonna love this. My friends are gonna hate it. I think Mizzou's gonna come in and hang for at least 14 plus on us, is my fear. Because this is where you and I differ about Drink. I think Drink wants to beat us worse than we want to beat them. And I think he wants to prove something. Every time he plays us, that's the feeling I get by the way he calls the game. I feel like that if they have the ball and have the opportunity to step on our throat and crush us, that's exactly what they're going to do. And that's just my personal 2 cents. I think there's a little bit of big brother, little brother with him with the university, and there's question whether or not he was interviewed for the job in 2020 and all those things that go with that. He's an Arkansas guy, graduated from Arkansas Tech. He grew up around Alma. But I still have issues with a guy that coaches a football team that never played the game himself. I just don't know that he understands 100%. But, to your point, he has done great this year. They have played out of their minds offensively. But I'm worried that they're going to hang 14 on us. I got Mizzou winning 14 plus or minus 14, more than 7.5. I don't know where that 7.5 is coming from. I think it's based off of what they did against Florida last week and what we did against FIU, which is skewed. But I got Mizzou beating us by 14 Saturday or Friday.
Yeah, I could see it.
It's going to be interesting. Heisman. Well, we'll talk about this real quick, and then we're going to get out of here. If you had to pick right now, Coach, who you picking?
Who do I think will get it, or who would I pick?
Who would you pick? If you had a vote today, who's Coach Kelley voting for Heisman?
Probably Michael Penix,
Yeah.
Washington's quarterback.
Yeah.
They're undefeated. He's popped up when nobody thought he would. They've still got a chance to win the national championship in theory, and that's probably who I'm picking.
I look at it myself, and my Auburn friends are going to hate what I'm fixing to say. I think Bo Nix.
Actually, let me say this. Who would I pick? I'd pick Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
But I think Bo Nix probably right now is the leader.
Yeah.
But I think Michael Penix wins it right now. Right, unless they lose to Oregon, then he won't win it.
Well, and I think that's what it may come down to, Coach. I think it may come down to that Pac-12 championship game. Here's the thing about the Heisman Trophy that drives me nuts that I wish they would change. They let these guys start turning in votes like week 10. And there are some lazy writers and lazy voters out there that will just turn their vote in week 10 instead of waiting until the last games are played and then turn their votes in. I wish that they would set this up to where the votes didn't get turned in until the last game of the season. Because there's been some guys in the past that have been robbed that should have won it, that didn't win it. And it was based off, what they saw in week 7 or week 8 versus seeing what happened in week 10, week 12, week 13. So I that's just my 2 cents on it. But I think Bo Nix is the leader, and I think he's going to win it. I really do. I think if he gets another shot, and I think Dan Lanning gets another shot at Washington, I think they might beat him.
Yeah, I think they will too. But you know what? It's good to have not a runaway Heisman winner too.
Oh yeah, I want it to be.
We usually have a runaway Heisman winner, but this year not so much. It could be. I think it could be any of those 3 guys we mentioned.
Yeah, it could be. It could
best player in the country, and I know he missed some time this year, but the best football player in the country, Brock Bowers, Georgia.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's good. He's a good football. I love watching him play football.
I think if Bowers hadn't had the ankle injury, he's probably sitting in New York. He may not win it, but he definitely would get an invite.
And he should,
because he's going to be a freak in the league in a couple of years. I mean,
I think so too.
That kid's a cheat code. I mean,
Yeah,
Georgia.
he's a Travis Kelsey,
Oh, absolutely.
Mark Andrews, one of those kind of guys, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy's he's a 5-tool receiver. He can catch the ball anywhere around his head. He's a hell of a runner. He's a good blocker, works hard. Just an all around good kid. So
yeah.
I like Bowers, and then McConkey at Georgia is another one that's one of my favorites to watch. I love watching that guy play too. So, well, guys, it's been a great season, or long season, but it's been a great season here for Coach all year. We've had a lot of fun. We've had some great guests this season. Appreciate everybody that joined in this year. Check back with us. We're going to probably do a recruiting show with Otis, maybe try to get Richard Davenport, maybe Danny West, get those guys on here in December after signing day, get some players on, talk to those guys. It's going to be interesting to see what Coach Pittman and the staff were able to do. You know, we talked about the offensive coordinator position. Do they make a change at a line coach between now and then? How do they lock down this recruiting class in 2023? And right, because right now they're ranked 23rd. They've lost a commitment to Crutchfield down at Pine Bluff. There's speculation there what's going on with that situation, and then looking at a couple other guys that may be teeter-tottering back and forth what to do. But it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks to see what happens out of Northwest Arkansas. But stick with us on Big Pig Energy on Twitter. Stick with us on Instagram. Arkansas Sports Networks. It's Matt Mosely and Coach Kevin Kelley telling you happy Thanksgiving and go Hogs.